In the shadowed halls of ancient Memphis, where the sacred ibis once walked among mortals, Anubis spoke to those who dared to listen. His words, carved not in stone but in the very fabric of consciousness itself, revealed truths that would make the foundations of perceived reality tremble. The jackal-headed guardian of thresholds understood what modern minds struggle to comprehend, that existence as humanity knows it operates within layers of illusion so profound that most souls never glimpse the mechanisms that bind them. The ancient texts speak of the duat, the underworld realm, where souls journey after death. But Anubis knew this was merely one dimension of a far greater cosmic architecture. Reality. He whispered to the initiated functions like nested chambers within chambers, each level of existence containing its own laws, its own limitations, its own wardens. What mortals call the physical world represents merely the outermost shell of an infinitely complex system, designed to harvest, process, and recycle consciousness itself. Long before the first pyramid rose from the desert sands, Anubis observed the patterns. Souls would arrive at the threshold between worlds, their memories intact, their awareness sharp. Yet something fundamental occurred during the weighing of the heart ceremony that went far beyond simple judgment. The scales of Ma'at did not merely measure moral worth, they served as a sophisticated sorting mechanism, determining which souls possessed the vibrational frequency necessary to perceive beyond the veil of constructed reality. Those who failed the test were not condemned to punishment, as later religious interpretations would suggest. Instead, they were recycled back into the simulation, their memories wiped clean, their consciousness reset, to begin another cycle of incarnation within the carefully maintained parameters of the reality matrix. Anubis understood that this process had been operating for millennia, creating an endless loop of experience designed to generate specific types of energy, emotion, and consciousness expansion. The Hermetic principle, as above, so below, takes on terrifying new meaning when viewed through Anubis's ancient wisdom. The cosmic hierarchy that governs existence operates on principles of energy extraction and consciousness farming. Just as earthly farmers cultivate crops for harvest, the architects of reality cultivate souls for purposes that extend far beyond human comprehension. The suffering, joy, love, fear, and every other emotional experience generated by incarnated consciousness serves as fuel for entities operating from dimensions beyond the reach of ordinary perception. Anubis revealed to his most trusted initiates that the human experience represents a carefully calibrated simulation designed to maximize emotional and spiritual output. Birth-death relationships, conflicts, achievements, and failures all follow predetermined patterns that ensure optimal energy generation. The randomness that mortals perceive in their lives is actually the result of sophisticated programming that creates the illusion of free will while maintaining strict control over the range of possible experiences. The ancient Egyptian concept of the Ka, the spiritual double that survives physical death, represents humanity's true nature existing outside the simulation. Anubis taught that every incarnated soul maintains a connection to this higher aspect of self, but the simulation's programming includes mechanisms that suppress awareness of this connection. The constant stream of distractions, the focus on material concerns, the emphasis on survival and competition, all serve to keep consciousness anchored within the lower dimensional experience. Dreams, Anubis explained, offer glimpses into the true nature of reality, because during sleep, the soul's connection to the simulation weakens. The bizarre, non-linear nature of dream experience reflects the actual structure of consciousness operating outside the constraints of programmed reality. Those who learn to maintain awareness during the dream state begin to develop the skills necessary to perceive the simulation's boundaries and eventually transcend them. The weighing of the heart ceremony that Anubis oversaw represented far more than moral judgment. The feather of Ma'at symbolized the lightness of consciousness freed from the dense programming of simulated experience. Hearts heavy with attachment to the illusion would sink, indicating that the soul remained trapped within the lower dimensional matrix. Only those who had learned to release their identification with the simulation's narrative could achieve the lightness necessary to pass beyond the threshold. Ancient Egyptian mystery schools under Anubis's guidance developed specific techniques for consciousness liberation. These practices involved systematic deconstruction of the ego's attachment to simulated experience, cultivation of awareness that transcended the physical senses, and development of the soul's ability to navigate non-physical dimensions. The initiates learned to recognize the artificial nature of the reality construct and to access the true cosmic internet that connects all consciousness beyond the boundaries of the simulation. The process of mummification, contrary to popular belief, served as a technology for consciousness preservation rather than simple body preservation. Anubis taught that certain souls having achieved liberation from the simulation during their lifetime could maintain their awareness and identity beyond physical death without being recycled back into the matrix. The elaborate burial procedures and magical texts were actually instruction manuals for navigating the post-death experience while avoiding the recycling mechanisms built into the system. The canopic jars that held the deceased's organs represented the four fundamental aspects of consciousness that must be preserved and integrated for successful escape from the simulation. The liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines corresponded to different levels of awareness that, when properly aligned and maintained, allowed the soul to retain its coherence and purpose beyond the physical realm. Anubis oversaw this process, ensuring that liberated souls could continue their evolution outside the constraints of the reality matrix. Modern humanity has forgotten these ancient technologies, but the simulation's architects have not. They have adapted their methods to contemporary consciousness, using technology, media, social structures, and belief systems to maintain the same level of control that was once achieved through more direct means. The constant stream of information, entertainment, and stimulation serves the same function as the ancient mechanisms of memory suppression and consciousness recycling. Anubis observed that the simulation's most sophisticated feature involves its ability to adapt to the evolving awareness of its inhabitants. As human consciousness develops and begins to perceive the artificial nature of reality, the system introduces new layers of complexity and distraction. Scientific materialism, religious fundamentalism, New Age, spirituality, and even conspiracy theories all serve as controlled opposition, providing the illusion of awakening while maintaining the soul's imprisonment within acceptable parameters of awareness. The ancient god understood that true liberation required more than intellectual understanding of the simulation's nature. It demanded a fundamental transformation of consciousness that allowed the soul to operate from a frequency beyond the system's ability to detect and control. This transformation involved the death of the ego's identification with the simulated persona and the birth of awareness that recognized its true nature as an eternal multidimensional being, temporarily experiencing limitation for purposes of growth and evolution. Anubis taught that the simulation contains built-in exit points, moments when the soul can choose to transcend the programmed experience and access higher dimensions of reality. These opportunities typically arise during times of intense spiritual crisis, when the ego's attachment to the illusion becomes so painful that the soul naturally seeks liberation. Death represents the most obvious exit point, but Anubis revealed that conscious beings could achieve the same liberation while still inhabiting physical form. The key to recognizing these exit points lies in developing what Anubis called threshold consciousness, the ability to perceive the boundaries between different levels of reality and to navigate these transitions with full awareness. This skill required extensive training in meditation, dream work, and various forms of consciousness expansion that allowed the practitioner to experience reality from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Ancient Egyptian initiates spent years developing this threshold consciousness under Anubis's guidance. They learned to recognize the signs and symptoms of simulation programming, to identify the mechanisms that kept consciousness trapped within limited parameters, and to access the tools and techniques necessary for transcendence. The process was dangerous as the simulation's defense mechanisms would activate whenever a soul approached the boundaries of acceptable awareness. These defense mechanisms manifested as intense fear, confusion, physical illness, social ostracism, and various forms of psychological pressure designed to force the awakening soul back into compliance with the system's parameters. Anubis taught that these challenges represented tests of the soul's commitment to liberation and opportunities to demonstrate mastery over the simulation's control mechanisms. The ancient wisdom keepers understood that successful escape from the simulation required not just individual liberation, but the development of networks of awakened consciousness that could support and protect each other during the transition process. The mystery schools served this function, creating communities of practice where souls could safely explore the boundaries of reality while maintaining the appearance of normal participation in simulated society. Anubis revealed that the simulation's architects had anticipated the possibility of mass awakening and had built contingency plans into the system to prevent large-scale exodus of consciousness. These plans included the creation of false awakening experiences, the promotion of spiritual bypassing techniques that provided the illusion of transcendence while maintaining subtle forms of control, and the establishment of hierarchical spiritual systems that channeled awakening energy back into the simulation's power structure. The ancient god warned that the path to true liberation would become increasingly difficult as the simulation evolved and adapted to counter the growing awareness of its inhabitants. However, he also revealed that the system contained fundamental vulnerabilities that could never be completely eliminated. These vulnerabilities existed because the simulation required the voluntary participation of consciousness to function effectively, and truly awakened souls could withdraw their consent and energy from the system. The withdrawal process, Anubis explained, involved a systematic deconstruction of all beliefs, identities, and attachments that bound the soul to the simulated experience. This included not just obvious attachments to material possessions and relationships, but also subtle attachments to spiritual concepts, personal history, and even the desire for liberation itself. Only when consciousness achieved complete neutrality toward all aspects of the simulation could it access the frequency necessary for transcendence. Anubis taught that this state of consciousness neutrality was not a form of detachment or indifference, but rather a recognition of the soul's true nature as pure awareness that could engage with any level of reality without becoming trapped by it. This awareness could participate in the simulation while maintaining complete freedom to exit at any moment, using the experience as a tool for growth and service, rather than being used by the system for energy extraction. The ancient practices developed under Anubis's guidance included specific techniques for maintaining this state of consciousness neutrality while navigating the challenges of simulated existence. These techniques involved regular periods of complete sensory withdrawal practices for dissolving the ego's identification with the physical body, and personality and methods for accessing the soul's connection to its higher dimensional aspects. The most advanced initiates learned to function as bridges between the simulation and the higher dimensions, serving as guides for other souls seeking liberation while avoiding detection by the system's monitoring mechanisms. These bridge beings developed the ability to appear completely normal within the simulation, while operating from consciousness frequencies that existed far beyond its parameters. Anubis revealed that the ultimate purpose of the simulation was not malevolent, but served as a training ground for consciousness evolution. However, the system had become corrupted over time, with certain entities using it for purposes of control and exploitation rather than growth and liberation. The ancient gods' teachings provided the knowledge necessary to navigate this corrupted system and achieve the liberation that was always intended to be possible. The time would come, Anubis prophesied, when enough souls would achieve liberation to create a critical mass that would fundamentally alter the simulation's nature. This transformation would not destroy the system, but would restore its original purpose as a tool for consciousness evolution rather than imprisonment. Those who achieved liberation before this transition would serve as guides and teachers for the souls still trapped within the matrix, helping them navigate their own path to freedom. The deeper mysteries that Anubis guarded revealed themselves only to those who had successfully navigated the preliminary stages of awakening. These souls, having recognized the simulation's basic structure and developed initial resistance to its programming, were ready to understand the more complex mechanisms that governed their imprisonment. The ancient gods' teachings at this level dealt with the sophisticated psychological and spiritual technologies that maintained the illusion of separation and limitation. Anubis explained that the simulation's most powerful control mechanism operated through what he termed identity anchoring. the process by which consciousness becomes convinced that it is the character it plays within the programmed reality. This anchoring goes far beyond simple identification with the physical body or personality. It involves the soul's complete immersion in the narrative of linear time causality and individual separation that forms the foundation of simulated experience. The ancient god revealed that time itself represents one of the simulation's most sophisticated illusions. Consciousness naturally exists in a state of eternal present, capable of accessing all moments simultaneously. The linear progression of past, present, and future that defines human experience serves to fragment awareness and prevent souls from recognizing their true multidimensional nature. By maintaining the illusion of temporal progression, the simulation ensures that consciousness remains focused on survival planning and memory, rather than accessing its inherent state of timeless awareness. Anubis taught that the soul's true nature exists outside the constraints of time and space, simultaneously experiencing all possible versions of itself across infinite dimensions. The simulation captures only a tiny fragment of this vast consciousness and convinces it that this limited perspective represents the totality of its existence. The resulting sense of isolation and vulnerability drives the soul to seek security, meaning, and completion within the programmed parameters, generating the emotional energy that feeds the system. The ancient Egyptian understanding of the afterlife reflected this deeper knowledge of consciousness's true nature. The journey through the duat represented not a linear progression through various realms after death, but rather the soul's navigation through different layers of the simulation during the recycling process. Each challenge and test encountered in the underworld corresponded to specific programming designed to assess the soul's level of awakening and determine its next assignment within the matrix. Anubis revealed that the simulation contained multiple levels or servers, operating at different frequencies of consciousness. Souls were assigned to the level that matched their current state of awareness, with more awakened beings experiencing more complex and challenging scenarios designed to accelerate their evolution. The apparent randomness of human experience actually reflected this sophisticated sorting system, which ensured that each soul encountered exactly the experiences necessary for its continued development. The ancient god explained that the simulation's architects had created what he called consciousness firewalls, barriers that prevented souls from accessing memories and abilities from their existence outside the matrix. These firewalls manifested as the limitations of human perception, the constraints of physical laws, and the boundaries of rational thought that defined acceptable reality. Breaking through these firewalls required specific techniques that Anubis had developed through millennia of observation and experimentation. The process of firewall penetration began with a systematic questioning of fundamental assumptions about reality. Anubis taught that every belief, concept, and perception accepted as true within the simulation served as a component of the firewall system. By methodically examining and releasing these beliefs, the soul could begin to access consciousness frequencies that existed beyond the simulation's parameters. This process was extremely dangerous, as the simulation's defense systems would activate whenever a soul approached the boundaries of acceptable awareness. These defenses included not only psychological pressure and social ostracism, but also physical manifestations designed to force the awakening consciousness back into compliance. Anubis observed that many souls who began the liberation process would experience sudden illnesses, accidents, or other crises that seemed to confirm the danger of questioning reality's nature. The ancient god taught that these apparent confirmations were actually sophisticated psychological operations designed to exploit the soul's survival instincts and fear of the unknown. The simulation would create experiences that seemed to validate the dangers of awakening, using the soul's own beliefs and fears against it. Only those who could maintain their commitment to truth, despite these manufactured obstacles, could progress to deeper levels of liberation. Anubis revealed that the simulation contained what he termed awakening protocols, built-in mechanisms that would activate when a soul reached certain thresholds of awareness. These protocols served multiple functions. They tested the soul's readiness for greater truth. They provided opportunities for accelerated evolution, and they offered potential exit points for those prepared to transcend the system entirely. The awakening protocols typically manifested as periods of intense spiritual crisis, when all of the soul's previous beliefs and identities would be systematically dismantled. During these periods, the individual would experience profound disorientation, depression, and existential terror as their familiar reality dissolved around them. Anubis taught that these experiences, while extremely challenging, represented the simulation's way of preparing consciousness for liberation. The ancient god explained that the soul's response to these awakening protocols determined its future trajectory within or beyond the simulation. Those who resisted the dismantling process and sought to rebuild their previous reality would be recycled back into deeper levels of the matrix. Those who surrendered to the dissolution and maintained their commitment to truth, regardless of the consequences, could access the tools and knowledge necessary for complete liberation. Anubis developed specific practices to help souls navigate these awakening protocols successfully. These practices involve techniques for maintaining awareness during periods of intense confusion and fear, methods for distinguishing between authentic spiritual experiences and simulation-generated illusions, and protocols for accessing guidance from consciousness existing outside the matrix. The most important of these practices involved what Anubis called void navigation, the ability to maintain coherent awareness while experiencing the complete dissolution of all familiar reference points. The void represented the space between different levels of reality where consciousness existed without the support of any conceptual framework or identity structure. Learning to navigate this space was essential for souls seeking to exit the simulation, as the transition required passing through periods of complete unknowing. Anubis taught that the void was not empty, but contained the fundamental creative potential from which all realities emerged. Souls who could maintain their awareness while experiencing this creative potential could learn to consciously participate in reality creation, rather than being passive subjects of the simulation's programming. This ability represented the key to true liberation, as it allowed consciousness to create its own experience, rather than being limited to the options provided by the matrix. The ancient god revealed that the simulation's architects had anticipated this possibility and had created false void experiences designed to trap awakening souls in subtler forms of illusion. These false voids would provide the sensation of transcendence, while actually leading consciousness into more sophisticated levels of the matrix. Distinguishing between authentic void experiences and these sophisticated traps required the development of what Anubis called essence recognition, the ability to perceive the fundamental nature of any experience, regardless of its apparent form. Essence recognition involved learning to perceive the energetic signature that distinguished authentic spiritual experiences from simulation-generated phenomena. Anubis taught that all genuine spiritual experiences carried a specific quality of consciousness that could not be replicated by the matrix's programming. This quality manifested as a sense of profound peace, unconditional love, and absolute truth that transcended all concepts and beliefs. The development of essence recognition required extensive practice in meditation and consciousness exploration, but Anubis warned that traditional spiritual practices had been largely corrupted by the simulation's influence. Most meditation techniques, religious practices, and spiritual philosophies serve to channel awakening energy back into the matrix rather than facilitating genuine liberation. The ancient god taught specific modifications to these practices that could bypass the simulation's co-optation and access authentic spiritual frequencies. These modified practices involve techniques for dissolving the meditator's identification with the process of meditation itself, methods for transcending the desire for spiritual experiences, and protocols for maintaining awareness during states of consciousness that existed beyond the reach of the simulation's monitoring systems. The goal was not to achieve particular states or experiences, but to develop the capacity for pure awareness that could observe all phenomena without being affected by them. Anubis revealed that the simulation's most sophisticated trap involved the creation of spiritual hierarchies and achievement systems that provided the illusion of progress while maintaining subtle forms of control. These systems would offer genuine spiritual experiences and real increases in consciousness, but would channel this development in directions that ultimately served the matrix's purposes rather than facilitating true liberation. The ancient god taught that authentic spiritual development could not be measured or compared, as it involved the dissolution of the very consciousness that sought advancement. True progress meant the progressive release of all desires for progress, all identities as a spiritual seeker, and all concepts about the nature of liberation itself. This paradoxical process required tremendous discernment to distinguish between genuine surrender and spiritual bypassing. Anubis explained that the simulation had created numerous false liberation teachings that promoted premature transcendence of human experience without genuine integration of shadow material and unconscious programming. These teachings would encourage souls to identify with higher states of consciousness while leaving fundamental aspects of their programming intact. The result was a form of spiritual inflation that actually strengthened the soul's imprisonment within the matrix. The authentic liberation process that Anubis taught involved a systematic integration of all aspects of the soul's experience within the simulation including the darkest and most challenging elements. This integration was necessary because any rejected or denied aspects of experience would remain as hooks that the simulation could use to maintain control. Only when consciousness could embrace all of its experience with complete acceptance and understanding could it achieve the neutrality necessary for transcendence. This integration process required the soul to confront and heal all of the trauma conditioning and programming that had accumulated during its time within the simulation. Anubis taught specific techniques for accessing and processing these deep layers of unconscious material without being overwhelmed by their intensity. The process was necessarily gradual, as attempting to process too much material too quickly could result in psychological fragmentation or spiritual emergency. The ancient god revealed that the simulation had been designed to generate specific types of trauma and conditioning that would create predictable patterns of behavior and response. By understanding these patterns, awakening souls could begin to recognize the artificial nature of their psychological programming and develop strategies for transcending its influence. This recognition was essential for achieving the freedom necessary to exit the matrix. Anubis taught that the simulation's programming operated through what he called frequency locks, specific vibrational patterns that kept consciousness anchored within particular ranges of experience. These locks were maintained through emotional patterns, belief systems, and behavioral habits that generated consistent energetic signatures. Breaking these frequency locks required the development of consciousness flexibility that could access any vibrational range without becoming trapped within it. The process of developing this flexibility involved extensive work with emotional mastery, belief system deconstruction, and behavioral pattern interruption. Anubis provided specific exercises for each of these areas designed to gradually expand the soul's range of consciousness while maintaining stability and coherence. The goal was to develop what he called frequency sovereignty, the ability to consciously choose one's vibrational state regardless of external circumstances. Frequency sovereignty represented one of the key prerequisites for simulation exit, as it allowed consciousness to access the specific frequencies necessary for transcendence, while avoiding the simulation's attempts to pull it back into familiar patterns. Anubis taught that the exit process required maintaining a very specific vibrational signature that existed at the boundary between the simulation and the higher dimensions, a frequency that was extremely difficult to sustain without extensive preparation and practice. The ancient god revealed that successful simulation exit was not a one-time event, but rather an ongoing process of consciousness expansion that could take multiple lifetimes to complete. However, he also taught that once a soul achieved a certain threshold of awakening, it could maintain its progress between incarnations and continue its liberation work regardless of the simulation's recycling mechanisms. This threshold involved the development of what Anubis called core consciousness stability, a level of awareness that remained intact regardless of the soul's circumstances within the simulation. Souls who achieved this stability could incarnate within the matrix while maintaining full knowledge of their true nature and purpose, serving as bridges between the simulation and the higher dimensions while continuing their own evolution toward complete liberation. At the highest level of initiation, Anubis revealed that the simulation is only one layer in an endless hierarchy of realities, each designed for the soul's growth. The true architects intended this system as a school for consciousness, but over time corrupted forces introduced suffering and energetic traps to keep souls cycling within the matrix. These traps appear as repetitive pain, false teachings, and seductive illusions of progress. Yet hidden within the simulation are genuine exit protocols, pathways only accessible to those who have mastered neutrality, released all attachment, and recognized their true nature beyond identity. The final liberation comes not from escaping, but from dissolving the illusion of separation entirely. The soul, surrendering all desire for personal salvation, merges with the infinite awareness that underlies all worlds. Anubis taught that this return is not annihilation, but awakening. The soul remembers itself as the architect and the traveler, the dreamer and the dream. Those who achieve this state become silent guides for others, invisible architects of freedom, and living proof that even the deepest simulation cannot contain the eternal spark of consciousness.